Welcome to the Gardening Show. We're so happy to have you join us today. My name is Dory Hammeke. I serve as president for the Bella Vista Garden Club, and I'm also a member of the Benton County Master Gardeners. And with me today is my guest, Debbie Bodnar. Debbie is the vice president of projects for the Benton County Master Gardeners, and she's knee-deep in terms of involvement in this project with me. So we're excited to talk with you today about the Bella Vista Community Garden, and we're also going to share some things about what to do in your own garden during the month of November. So it should be a fun and kind of informative show here today. But before we start, I'd like to first thank the Benton County Master Gardeners as well as the Bella Vista Garden Club for their sponsorship of this TV program. They enable us to reach out to our audience here in Northwest Arkansas and provide some hopefully pretty helpful information about gardening in this area. So first, why don't we talk about the Bella Vista Community Garden? This was started in 2014 as kind of a joint effort between Mercy and Cooper Elementary School. So the garden is about 10 years old, and there's a sign on the outside of it that says the land of healthy living. And I think this really kind of sums up the reasons for Mercy's involvement in this particular garden. They're really trying to help the residents of Bella Vista lead healthy lives through good nutrition and exercise. So, really what better way to do this than involving young students to learn about the value of good nutrition and healthy living at a really young age. So as I mentioned, it was constructed in 2014, headed up by the Mercy Foundation. And there was a pretty healthy grant that helped make this happen, and that came from General Mills. The garden has 15 beds, and those beds are of different heights and sizes so that they could accommodate students of different ages. The nice thing about that, though, I think, Debbie, you would agree with me, is that many of them are a little higher in height. So as we age, it's been really great to have some taller beds to work with. The garden is protected from critters because it has a 6-foot fence around it, and it also, fortunately, has a drip irrigation system, which is really wonderful in terms of these hot summers and keeping the beds watered. There are 9 volunteers who work at this garden. Some are master gardeners, and some are volunteers who've been working with the garden for several years. They're able to have a little bit of bed space for their own family use, but primarily what they grow goes into the food pantry inside the front entryway there of Mercy. In the early days, this garden served as a classroom for the students at Cooper Elementary. The teachers would come over and plant things, usually in March, April, May, and they would use it as this opportunity to teach the kids both about science and nature. But I've also seen them use it for other things. I remember once watching them do a math class where the students were able to measure the sides of the beds and determine space and then calculate how many vegetables might come out of it and so forth. So they've done some really wonderful creative things in terms of teaching the kids about gardening through this particular garden. But the challenge with that came in late May when the students would leave for the summer, and then the garden kind of became a weed fest in the community, and quite honestly a little bit of an eyesore. So that was when the mayor asked for some volunteers to help with it, and we began growing vegetables in those beds and putting them all in the food pantry there at Mercy. So it was only about 3 years ago, I think, Debbie, that it became a sanctioned project of the Benton County Master Gardeners. And I think a lot of our audience knows about the Benton County Master Gardeners, but they probably have no idea what a sanctioned project is. So maybe you can enlighten them on that.
Okay. We have 2 basic sanctioned projects. One is the administrative projects, which provide the behind the scene, the services needed to meet our objectives. The other one is gardening projects, which the Bella Vista Garden is one. The goal is to work the property or the nonprofit organization to meet their needs and desires to maintain the projects. But we like to call it an educational unit, which we help with assisting what they want, the maintenance of perennials, flowers, shrubs, and especially vegetables, because we always like a new vegetable to taste. So last year we donated about 900 pounds of produce.
Wow, that's a lot.
This year we increased it. We gave over 1,000 pounds into the pantry that's housed at the Mercy Clinic. We pick the produce usually in the morning, excuse me, and we wash them, and then we take them in, and they don't last the day because everybody wants a good tasting vegetable. Since there is no refrigeration on these bookshelves, we have to have them shelf stable. And what we do is tomatoes, green beans, peppers, cucumbers, onions, okra. Those are all what we've grown. And like I said, by noon, most of the vegetables are gone from the pantry.
So it sounds like all those vegetables are vegetables that can be left on a shelf.
Correct.
Don't need refrigeration, so that if they did remain in the pantry for a few
A
days,
day, yeah.
it's kind of like having those vegetables out on your kitchen counter. Okay.
And some of the tomatoes are not quite all ripe, so they can easily stay on a shelf for an extra day or two.
Yeah, there's an advantage in sometimes picking tomatoes when they're not fully ripe. You can prevent them from being eaten by the birds or other insects. And also, once they've started to turn color, it really doesn't impact the flavor of that fruit at all to pick that early and let it ripen on the shelf.
Right, right.
Did you have any particular varieties of tomatoes that were really productive for you?
Yes, this year we had what's called a Verona. It's a small tomato. It's bigger than a cherry tomato, but it was very prolific on producing. In fact, when we cleaned the bed just this last weekend, we still had lots of green ones on. But somebody picked them, and they took them home, and they'll leave them on their counter, and they will ripen. And they may just cut them in half and put them in a salad. That was awesome.
It's a variety I love. It's really a great variety. Well, in order to have all of those various plants be successful that you've described, and to grow that volume of produce, it also takes quite a bit of pollination to support a garden that's that productive. And I think this is really where the students come into play at Cooper. Last spring, we worked with third grade students from Mrs. Tremy's class. She had about 25 just really bright and talented students.
Very active students.
Very much so. A lot of energy. That should probably be the number one description of them. Very energetic. But I had actually first been introduced to these students through communications that I shared via email last February and March with Mrs. Tremy. And she has this wonderful kind of plan where every afternoon, just right before the students would go home, she would read to them. And they had various books and so forth that they would read about. And I asked her if she cared if I would send information about a trip that I was making. My husband and I were traveling to New Zealand and Australia and Indonesia. And so during those 30 or so days that we were traveling, every few days I sent an email message to Mrs. Tremy. and I told her students about life in that particular area where we were. So it included information about a lot of natural things, birds and plants and so forth, a little bit about the culture of that area, and just general information and lots of pictures. And so when we returned in late March, just a week after we returned, I spent an afternoon with the students where we planted seedlings in their school classroom. And it was so fun. I came in wearing this apron that had kiwi birds on it and kiwi fruit. And that started the conversation about life in New Zealand and where these, they wanted to know whether or not I'd ever seen a kiwi bird, which is nocturnal, and they wanted to know about the fruit and so forth. But they had lots of wonderful questions. So we started with answering all those. They were very excited about it. And then we were able to begin the plan of planting these particular seeds. So they all had a small paper cup. They used their pencil to poke a hole in it, and then they got to put their hands in the dirt, which was what they loved the most. And they filled those cups up and then very gingerly kind of put a couple of seeds on the top of them, covered them with soil. Now, as you might imagine, when it came to watering, it would be very easy for them to flood it in no time at all. So we had to, as an example, show them just about how much water to put in it. We let each one of them hold the watering can and water theirs and so forth. And then we set them aside in a tray so that they could grow by the window in their classroom. And Mrs. Treme, to her credit then, she set up a schedule where every student, every few days, had the task of watering the plants and keeping them alive. They did a remarkable job.
What did you plant?
It was all zinnias. It was all zinnia seeds that we did. And these plants were then later planted in May, and I think we may have some pictures. I think you've seen a few maybe of the students in the classroom, and then now we'll show you as they walked over to the garden. It's just a very short walk, about a half a block, and they came over carrying these little cups with their seedlings in it that weren't very tall at all and pretty long and lanky and with only a few leaves. But it was really fun as they were able to gingerly kind of dig a hole in the garden bed area that we had and plant these seeds that they had really nurtured and treasured for really 2 months in the classroom. But it also provided a great opportunity to also talk with them about the garden, show them around, let them see. You kind of remember, I think,
Yes.
some of the things that they did with radishes and lettuce and
Some
so
of their
forth.
faces when we were able to pull and let them taste. Some had tasted radishes before, some hadn't, but they had quite the expressions.
It was really fun. And the other thing that we did, we had peas growing, and so they were all able to pick peas, and they learned how to take them
Shell 'em.
apart to shell the peas and so forth. So it was just a great day. I don't know about for you, Debbie, but for me, these are like the best days of the whole year, to work with these students and see their excitement as they're almost screaming, "This is so fun!"
And they don't realize that a radish grows in the ground and a pea is on a vine outside. So they just kind of, really? They would look at you and say, yeah, that's where it come from.
It's so true. When we work in the garden through the summer months, especially if we're there on Sunday mornings, and they have the farmers market just in the parking lot close to us, it's always fun to have the gate open, have families come in, wander around. We tell them about the garden. But I'm always surprised at oftentimes that parents don't necessarily know where some of these come from. And I think my biggest surprise was one day when we harvested potatoes.
Yes.
And they weren't, familiar with where those had grown. But it's really just a great benefit to the community. So we'll show you a few pictures here of that, and then we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the cleanup day that we had with the Boy Scouts here recently.
Since 2008, Joel's Upholstery and Fabrics in Bentonville has been your go-to destination for top-notch upholstery and fabrics. With over 25,000 yards of in-stock upholstery and home decor fabrics, vinyls, leathers, and a vast design library, we make reupholstery easy and affordable. Our expert staff is available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. to assist you. We cater to both commercial and household upholstery needs. Stay updated on our latest news, sales, and projects by following us on Facebook and Instagram.
All righty, it looks like we're back. That was a quick break. Debbie, I'm going to ask you to just tell the audience a little bit about this wonderful work day that we had with the Scouts from PAC 3410.
Yes, on Saturday, we had about 10 Scouts and their parents and their leaders come help clean the garden. It was a lot of work, but the boys were really good. They liked getting their hands dirty. What we did is we had to pull all the dead plants, lots of tomatoes and green beans, and dispose of them. And then I had a couple Scouts working the pollinator garden where we pulled all the flowers that the school had planted, but some of them had come back naturally from Mother Nature. So the day before, I went and deadheaded the zinnias and the marigolds, so I had the seeds, and after the boys got done cleaning it, I had the boys take the deadheads and run them through their fingers and then throw them on top of the bed. So we're just going, and I raked it in just a little, but we'll leave them set over winter, and Mother Nature will do its thing, and we should have lots of zinnias and marigolds come up naturally.
That's great. You know, at the beginning of the program, we talked about the fact that we would share a few things about what to do in your garden during the month of November. So this is one of them.
Right.
Saving those seeds so that you have them for the following year.
Right. And besides in the garden, we have cinder blocks as an edging. So we had the kids, we do have dirt in the cinder blocks, so we had the kids put seeds in the cinder blocks as well. So hopefully that'll be more flowers come.
We'll have a head start for next year.
Right.
That's great.
So after they got everything pulled, we got the joy, or the boys got the joy of planting garlic. So they had to break the cloves of garlic, or the heads of garlic up into different cloves.
That's not an easy task.
No, they can be hard, and then with the paper thin on them, it's like, do we take that all off? Do we leave it on? But they were good.
But with garlic, you do leave a little bit of paper around those cloves, right?
Right.
Okay. And then you plant them with kind of the root down and the point up.
Yep.
Okay.
Just like any of the bulbs that we would do. So, and then they got to put straw all over the top. They had a big time with that.
That's kind of messy.
But they had fun. So having the Scouts there, this was a community service project for them. They were working on what's called the Arrow of Light Citizenship Pin, which my understanding, part of that is that they had to work 2 hours in a community project to qualify for this, which they were there a good 2 hours. And it was very much appreciated because it would have took us 9 members probably a whole weekend to do what the boys and their parents and the leaders helped us with.
About how many boys were there?
There were about 10 boys.
Okay.
And I don't know, a couple leaders and then a lot of parents. And the parents were learning just as well as the kids were. Some were avid gardeners, some were just beginning using containers, and we talked, what did you put in there? Did it grow? What can you do better? So it was an education for everybody.
Oh, I'm sure it was. And I think they love being able to give back to their community, knowing and what it means to have produce from that garden go to families in Bella Vista who may have food insecurities and so forth. So it's really such a great way for them to learn about how to give back.
Right.
You know, I'm sure they realize that all those other folks that were there were also volunteers. And so a lot could be accomplished in a short time with this group of people all working kind of
And I
toward
think the scouts
one-
were so, thrilled about it. They may come in the spring and watch us while we plant and, give them some ideas of what they can do at their own homes.
and maybe help with some of that planting.
Oh,
We
yes.
wouldn't
No.
we wouldn't turn that
No.
help away. Well, I think in the slides that were shown, and the photos that were shown, you can see some of the other things that can be done in your garden during the month of November. One of the things that was mentioned was planting larkspur seeds. Larkspur need cool weather in order to germinate, and they're absolutely beautiful, beautiful blue flowers. They grow well in this part of the country, but you have to remember to get them in the soil so that they are able to, those seeds can be stratified and go through the cool and the warm before they germinate. We also had some information, a slide I think there that talked about raking your leaves and so forth. It's best if you're able to shred those when you rake them. A lot of people keep them on their yards as a way to provide shelter and cover for insects and so forth. So you can remove them, but it's also healthy to just kind of mulch them and put them back into your soil. They provide a wonderful mulch for your garden through the winter months. We also, I think, had a photo there about cleaning your tools. And this is really one of the fun things, especially with students, young kids, to learn at an early age that these tools can last a lifetime.
As long as you don't put them away dirty.
That's right. You just have to take good care of them. And so part of the experience on that Saturday cleanup was to clean those tools, dry them very well, and then I don't know whether or not they were able to put a little bit of oil on them, but that definitely helps protect them through the winter months and keeps your tools in good shape. I'm not sure if we missed any other of the activities for the month of November, but it's really in general a time to kind of clean up and let the garden kind of go to sleep a little bit and bring nourishment to those roots during the winter months so that come spring they're really healthy and provide a lot of color and enjoyment. I think there was one slide or one photo there about planting spring blooming flowers, and that gives me a chance to mention that the Garden Club is going to once again sell daffodils for residents of Bella Vista, and the city of Bella Vista is going to have us plant some at the new fire training station that's up on the north end of 71 Highway. But there is going to be a mixture of bulbs this year. It will include the Bella Vista variety, which is a beautiful white daffodil. It has white petals and an orange cup, and it blooms kind of mid-season. But they've also added some other varieties, one called the Amsterdam Mix and another one called the Mix of the South. They're putting these all together in bundles, and the great thing about this is that it enables you to have a variety of colors, and the bloom time will go from early to late, so you can have daffodils in bloom virtually for about a full month. Most likely in March is when you'll see them, March to early April.
March is spring month, so we gotta have flowers.
That's right. The Garden Club has already planted well over 20,000 daffodils in the city of Bella Vista. They're at almost all the public buildings, the police station, fire stations, the new public safety building last year. I think we planted about 500 or so there. And we're going to be planting some in front of the new fire training facility for the city. So we're trying to keep all that beauty in beautiful Bella Vista. The bulbs will be available to order through November 15th. And I think the cost is $10, or 10 bulbs for $15, and then 25 bulbs for $35. And if you go to bellavistagardenclub.com, it'll show you all the information about how to order those and pay for them, etc. So I think with all that, we're ready to bring our program to a close today. And Debbie, I would just like to personally say thank you for all that you do for the Master Gardeners and all that you're doing for the Bella Vista Community Garden. It's really a wonderful asset to our city, and we're especially pleased to involve some of the students from Cooper Elementary and just young people from the community to create this lifelong love of gardening. So until the next time, we hope to see you in the garden.